Well, hi navigators. My name is Lloyd Northern and I work at Nearmap looking after the global customer experience. Joining me today is Esther Lang from Downer Group.
Hey Lloyd.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks Lloyd. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thanks for joining us at Nearmap Navigate. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what we're looking at here on the screen behind us?
Absolutely. So my name's Esther. I'm a senior project engineer at Downer. I work in our airports and specialised pavement team, which is mainly around asphalt projects across the country. The map on the screen actually shows all the different locations of projects I've worked on in the last 5 years, including that one in the middle of Australia at Ayers Rock Airport, which was a pretty cool project.
That's pretty amazing. What do all the different colours mean on this map and all the different icons?
The colours and icons show the different types of projects that I've worked on, but primarily it is what I like to describe as the 3 Rs.
Interesting. So these 3 Rs, like, what are they? I feel it has something to do with things going really fast.
Absolutely. So the 3 Rs are runways, racetracks, and roads. Primarily in my career, I started in quality management and I've gone through project planning and now help assist with managing work crews on site. But the 3 projects that I've got on the screen here, the first one on the left was my first project I worked on. We were working just on the edge of the Brisbane Airport runway, paving a section of taxiway through there. The one on the top is the Albert Park Grand Prix racetrack, which we paved over summer this year. And the picture at the bottom is the Eastlink Road project, which is the project we're going to be talking about today.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So we're excited to have you as part of Nearmap Navigate, mainly because of the complexity and the size of Downer Group, right? I know many of our customers' workplaces here, both in the audience and online, aren't the same as yours every day. So I think we might talk a little bit about this and the differences that we're seeing here.
Absolutely. So Downer Group is about 35,000 people across Australia and New Zealand. And I work in, as I said, a little pocket of that in the airports and specialised pavements team. What I'm going to talk about today is how we use Nearmap to deliver a key infrastructure project in Melbourne. But the basis of the project is that it's a toll road down the eastern suburbs. The scope included removing and replacing the top 30 millimetres of asphalt across the full width of that carriageway. The work has to be completed over 3 consecutive summers due to our temperature requirements of the work. And we have time-limited works from 8 p.m. in the evening to 5 a.m. in the morning, opening to a full road closure each day.
Wow, okay, so this sounds very complicated. I think there must be a lot of limiting factors that are in play here. You talk about doing this over 3 consecutive summers, so obviously in Melbourne it gets pretty cold, so laying this hot asphalt is not possible, right?
That's correct. So in terms of our limiting factors, there's a heap of preparation that needs to go to successfully delivering this project every night. We have 2 main work fronts that we look after, as well as a large amount of material that gets trucked on and off site. I think some of our peak nights we had about 2,000 tonnes of material moved across that shift. And as I mentioned before, we've got to open that road at 5 a.m. for all of the vehicles to travel to and from work the next day. There's also site safety we need to focus on, making sure that all of our workers on foot are safe from the live traffic, so we have that full closure in place, and making sure even within our own work site, having that separation of our 2 work fronts. This also includes access for trucking, and as you can see in the picture, there's quite a few trucks involved in the process of moving this amount of material. And we also need to work out where we're going to store our gear on site.
Okay, so this is like a huge operation, but like there's a lot of needs here. So we have the customer needs, who are the people who are using their roads. We have the toll provider, and we also have your company's needs and your safety needs. So how do you manage these particular outcomes that come up on a daily basis?
There's 3 kind of key groups that we look after here. There's our client needs and making sure we're minimising our impact to our customer, particularly through revenue because it's a toll road, as well as reducing the impact to road users. So we want to keep them moving as quickly as possible along the road. And that's part of the reason why the works are completed at night, which helps maintain our full access to that work area. We also provide clarity to our customer and our client to make sure that their customers know where we're working each night so they can plan alternate routes. We've also got our worksite needs, where we have that full closure in place, the full width of the carriageway. We've got to bring all of our equipment to site, including all of our rollers like on the screen. We've also got to get, as I said, that access for our trucks in and out of site, as well as providing safe work areas between our two disciplines. All our work needs to be completed, including getting that line marking down prior to the road being open the next day. There's also the other thing that you don't really think about because it's usually not something that we have to worry about, but our emergency services still need access through our job site. If there's something that happens on the road further down, the police, ambulance, fire need to come through, so being able to provide access for them is also critical to the job.
Yeah, okay. So this sounds like a pretty complex process in terms of allowing emergency services to still use the road or certain, you guys need access as well. So if we think about it, I think let's take a closer look at how Nearmap has helped you plan this particular project, but also more so the project tool, right? I think that's the key we're here to talk about today.
Definitely. So I actually started using Nearmap on this project because I needed a tool that I could use to work out my shift areas, particularly because this is an existing asset. It's been around for probably about 10 to 15 years. So sometimes the drawings from the original build may not exist anymore or are outdated because changes have happened over the life cycle of the project. And in that, we use different projects to be able to see all of our different work areas as well.
So in a nutshell, you're saying MapBrowser really stepped up to help you deliver what you needed to do on this particular project?
Absolutely. There was a whole bunch of tools that we use within MapBrowser. We plotted where our key assets were on site that we needed to know about, as well as bringing in our survey models so we could confirm exactly where our work areas were. We also mapped the changes from when the road was originally constructed through to now to make sure our areas were accurate, as well as measuring up our parking areas for our big equipment. On the slide, we've got our asphalt pavers. They're about 8 metres wide in that setup. I've got to say, it's quite difficult to find parking spots for one of those pavers at 8 metres wide, let alone 2 of them on the side of a road.
So I guess it's not for the faint-hearted then.
Definitely not.
So you're using MapBrowser for quite a few things. On this image behind us, how many layers do you think we have here?
I think I did a count, and it's just over 100 on the map behind you. We use this to calculate our work areas for every shift across the project. We determine our productivities as well as showing where those existing assets were. Reviewing our access requirements was key as well, and grouping together our work areas in our feature groups was particularly important. And what it meant that showing both those work fronts in our shift plans meant that I could communicate well to both my clients and my people on site in terms of where the work was, but it also eliminated the guesswork of completing the project. The details are the polygons are quite detailed. I like to make sure all the lines are in the right spot. But being able to collect these feature groups together for our work areas and our different closures was great to be able to turn these layers on and off across the project.
Okay, so with MapBrowser though, how are you really using it to get the most value out of this particular project in terms of your planning and things like that? So you are working on one project, but there must be multiple phases of the project. It's like wax on, wax off type concept. You got to take the road up, you got to put the road down. So how are you using it for that particular aspect of this job?
Pretty much, I got about a third of the way through the project before I realised that I could use 2 projects side by side as part of my planning. It means that I've got my different productivities, my different shifts across the same work area, and I can put them next to each other to see the differences between my 2 work fronts.
So these 2 images behind us, what are the differences really here? They just look like a bunch full of, colourful polygons, really, in my mind.
I do like using the colours on the polygons, I've got to say. It makes it much more interesting to look at. But the differences between the 2 images is the top image is our profiling, which is where we remove the asphalt. We've got 2 profiling machines working together, but we're limited by our available area within our closure, as well as our physical barriers, whether that's the concrete on the edge or a drain that runs alongside our work front. But profiling can be completed across the full width within one shift, which means that it's got a slightly different view than what the asphalt does. And so the bottom image is our asphalt work areas. And as part of that, we're actually only able to pave one side of the road at a time, otherwise we can't get our trucks in. So what happens here is we have 2 asphalt crews that work together, and that allows us to complete all the work areas that are on site.
Okay, so it is just more than polygons. You're using it to plan and do your shifts, as you mentioned. What was life like before you used Nearmap and MapBrowser in particular? From when we talked before this, you've had access to Nearmap for about 4.5 years or so.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't use MapBrowser as much as I could have previously, but to be honest, if I had to do this job again and I didn't have access to MapBrowser, I don't know what I would do. Having a tool like this means that I can get all the detail and information I need, and I can get it as accurate as possible as well.
Okay, and we discussed earlier during the introduction that you're a senior project engineer. I don't see you sitting at your desk all day. We sort of talked about this before, like your workplace is very different to maybe some of our customers here in the audience and joining us virtually. So how does this look for you?
I actually take Nearmap on the road with me, quite literally, if you can pardon the pun. I use MapBrowser regularly on a tablet on site, which means I can update my work areas as I'm working through them, as well as being able to show these areas to the people I'm working with on site. Having that visual explanation of our work areas makes it so much easier to communicate this with my team as well as my clients as well. And then also having the ability to adjust it while I'm on site means that my time in the office at the end of a shift, putting the next shift's plan together, is significantly reduced, which is not a fun task at 5 o'clock in the morning.
So you're definitely making the most of what MapBrowser has to offer, taking it on the road with you.
Yes,
Sure.
definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So you're currently based in Newcastle at the moment, working on a small project up there, I would suggest. And summer's just around the corner. So are you going to be back on this same project? Because you said it has to be completed over the 3 consecutive summers.
Unfortunately, I won't be making it back to Eastlink this summer because my current project needs to keep me up in Newcastle.
Okay, so how does this work then? Like, you've done a lot of planning and detail in MapBrowser of those polygons and all the different work fronts that you're working across. So who will take over this, and like, what would you share with your colleagues, or how will you share it?
Look, I will be handing the gauntlet over to one of my colleagues, and I've been able to share a lot of my learnings as I went through the project to learn all the best things I can do, and I'm sure there are improvements that he'll be able to take. But I've actually been harassing you and the team members at Nearmap about possibly being able to share my projects so I've got more information I can give them. And I believe we've now got project sharing that's just become available.
Yeah, Don mentioned it this morning in his keynote, but actually the basic project sharing is available today. So you can export your layers and your feature groups, and then you can send them as a file, a JSON file, to another Nearmap user or a colleague of yours, and then you'll be able to upload them and see those drawings. So I'm sure that's going to be helpful for the handover of this project for you.
Absolutely. It's actually perfect timing for me to hand over that information to my colleagues.
That's great to hear. So I think that nearly brings us to the end of this session. But before we sort of end and wrap up, I'd really like to understand what are some takeaways that we should leave here today. I usually like to, leave conferences with 3 key takeaways from a session, so that people can get a different perspective of how they can use Nearmap next time.
Definitely. So there's 3 kind of key things that I've learnt using Nearmap and MapBrowser. Don't be afraid to get into the nitty-gritty. I know a lot of my polygons are a little bit too much in terms of the areas that I'm calculating, but having that high level of detail allows me to be more accurate with my project planning and the information that I share with my colleagues, particularly with projects like this. There are so many different key elements, even within my own team, that need to know this information, and being able to prepare them with that information in as much detail as I was able to get out of Nearmap has been a fantastic tool. The other one is using different projects. So I'm someone, as we saw on the map before, I work across a whole bunch of different projects, but it means that using those project tools means I can jump back into where I left off on a project. I can go and find more information or reference something that I've previously done on a project, and I've been able to go back and look at exactly where I left off and know all my information is still there. But then also the other thing I would like to share is making sure that other people can use Nearmap and MapBrowser to its full extent, and I regularly share with my colleagues the key learnings and experiences and different tips and tricks that I've learnt along the way.
And you talk about these tips and tricks as well, but like, where did you learn these? And was it just playing around with it and investing time in learning the tool more?
Yeah, look, it was a lot of trial and error, and there was, at least for a period of time before I could Control Z and undo the accidental move of my box somewhere else on the screen.
For sure.
It was definitely a lot of trial and error to work out how I could get this done, but even then, learning some of these extra tools and adding index points on my polygons allow me to add extra error, and I can do a quick take off and then be able to get into the detail when I need to.
Yeah, wow. So I think that's a really good summary. I like it. Don't be afraid. Running different projects at different times allows you to see different things or different work fronts, and also using Nearmap and MapBrowser to its full extent, taking it on the road with you, being able to use it wherever you are, and putting you in control of the project and the planning you're doing. It sounds like a good summary. So
Yes.
thank you. So thank you for joining us here today, Esther, and thank you to our audience and our audience online as well. We appreciate you joining us during this session. Thank you.